Hello, everyone. I am back for a third time. So excited to have another one of these conversations today. Great to be here. And if you have any questions or comments or things you'd like to for me to discuss or things you don't want me to discuss, I guess you can do that too. Just drop some comments right here in the StreamYard link, and I will see those. Great to be here. Great to chat again. Let's get right into it. So, a few things on my mind today. I want to focus mostly on Arbitrum Orbit. One of the really, really big pieces of news since I joined, I went live last, was the 8chain vote concluded. For those of you that don't know, the ApeCoin DAO, which is the DAO associated with Bored Ape Yacht Club, had a vote for their chain. They wanted to launch a chain. They've been talking about this for a very long time. There's been an ongoing process in the community with different chain developers and platforms vying for this opportunity. And it culminated in a vote. There were 4 different teams in the vote, and one of them was a proposal to launch an Arbitrum. And drumroll, that was the one that succeeded. So super, super excited that 8chain will be going live on the Arbitrum technology stack. And actually, one of the other big pieces of the news that followed along that night is, I love how these virtual backgrounds, my head kind of disappears. So I do confirm that the whole head is there, even though some of it seems to be fading away. I do have ears, actually. Anyway, sorry, back to what I was talking about. Right after the 8chain announcement went live, a super cool thing that happened was Yuga Labs, which is, of course, the development company that issued and owns the IP for collections like Bored Ape Yacht Club, as well as CryptoPunks, Meebits, and others, announced, hey, we're super excited about 8chain and excited to basically look at it to build their games. And that's an extremely exciting announcement. Many people assumed that would be the case, but Yuga, for, I think, noble reasons, very good reasons, didn't really get involved in the process, let the community do its own thing. But once that process completed, Yuga was very quick to congratulate and put out an announcement and say, hey, they're super excited about this. And I think it's going to be a fantastic addition to the Arbitrum Orbit ecosystem. And the Arbitrum Orbit ecosystem is already doing really well when it comes to gaming, a powerhouse of gaming. We have also going on live is the Treasure DAO. Let's go take a look at that, actually. I know the Treasure DAO voting was going live. For those of you that remember, Treasure is, of course, one of the earliest Arbitrum projects. They were being courted by some other teams that saw their success and tried to pull them away from Arbitrum. But I think the core team certainly has come out very strongly that they intend to build Treasure Chain on Arbitrum, and they're actually doing a snapshot. I think it ends today, actually. So let me take a look. I've been following that. Treasure proposals, ecosystem selection for the Treasure Chain. I should probably share my screen. Is there a way to do that here? There for sure is. Present. Let's present. Give me a second. Let me just figure out how to do that. Sorry, bear with me. We can figure out how to build roll-ups, but sharing screen on video calls is always going to be difficult. Give me 1 second, and I will present here. Okay, let's present. Share screen. 1 second. This seems too easy. Give me 1 second. Let me just close some things out here. Share screen. Screen sharing works best on a good computer. I think I have a good computer, so let's find out. Share screen, Treasure proposals. There we go. Share. Boom. Okay. Hopefully you can see that next to me here. So this is the Treasure proposal ecosystem selection for the Treasure Chain. And oh my goodness, that is a decisive. Is it over yet? Let's see. It ends at 4:30 p.m. I guess in 2 hours. So, but right now, a decisive victory that seems likely. It's not over yet, so it ain't over till it's over. But 99.7% of the community voting for Arbitrum. That is a resounding vote that shows support for the Arbitrum ecosystem, and I'm super excited to see that happen. And Treasure and Arbitrum to renew their vows, if you will. Arbitrum has been a very, very early Treasure has been a very early ecosystem of part of the Arbitrum ecosystem. Sorry, the words are coming out fast today. Treasure has been a very early and very important part of the Arbitrum ecosystem, an important part of, in my view, the future of the Arbitrum gaming ecosystem. So we got Treasure, which is showing a strong sign of support for Arbitrum. And by the way, it makes sense. They're doing really well. Of course, others are going to want them, but there's something very special about the relationship. I think it's a two-way street. I think Trezor is very important to Arbitrum, and Arbitrum is very important to Trezor. And I'm super excited that in my role here, building technology, to have the ability to continue to work with this fantastic team. Super excited for ApeChain to come along, and super excited also for Zai, which is a third gaming chain ecosystem in Arbitrum that's also doing really well. And I think Arbitrum is going to be a community of gaming platforms and chains, and one that's collaborative. One of the nicest things right after the ApeChain vote went out and concluded, I should say, Corel of Trezor hosted a space welcoming them to the Arbitrum ecosystem. Like, you don't see that anywhere else. These potentially could be viewed as competitors, but no, it's a welcoming ecosystem. And actually, that's one of the defining characteristics of the Arbitrum ecosystem. From day one, Arbitrum was all about fair launch, welcoming everyone, rolling out the red carpet for everyone. And, win or lose, whether you're going to be a big project or small project, that's on you. But on us is to support you. And we've always been, from a technical perspective here at Offchain Labs and from an ecosystem perspective, trying to do our best to support people building in the ecosystem. So very excited for that to happen. Not surprising that others see these successes of protocols in Arbitrum, but I think it's you have to ask yourself, why are they succeeding on Arbitrum? There's something very special about the community, about the ecosystem, about the technology, and about the mix of all those things together that makes this just a very special place. So excited to have Trezor continue to thrive there alongside other gaming giants like ApeChain, Zai, and more to come as well. I am looking at the chat, by the way. Trezor Chain does sound cool. Hey, Gabriel. Yes, the live stream feature is working, and feel free to throw in any other points there. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here so you can see my face. But let's talk a little more about Arbitrum Orbit. Arbitrum Orbit is getting a ton of adoption. Another shout out to a chain that went live in the past 2 weeks. I think I mentioned this last time, is Rari Chain from Rarible. Again, doing fantastically well. They're doing innovative things with sharing royalties, sharing creator, sharing with creators. Some creators have already made over 100 ETH on that chain and doing really, really awesome things there. So a shout out to them. A shout out to the other dozens of projects. Yes, dozens of projects building on Arbitrum Orbit. I think there is about 24 that have publicly said, hey, we're an Orbit chain here. I know of some others that are big ones that are going to announce soon, and others that are coming. But I think all together, there's definitely over 50. That's an old number. So significantly more than 50 chains that we're aware of that are building an Arbitrum Orbit, or public or private. And Arbitrum Orbit is becoming the de facto standard to build a chain. So let's get into that a little bit. What is Orbit? Why does it differ from its competitors? How does it differ? And why are so many projects choosing Orbit to build their technology? Why do I think it's a great choice for ApeChain, for Zai, for Trezor, but also for others like Kinto, Frame, Rari, Phoenix. I'm just going to stop name dropping now. I always do that and get myself in trouble because I for sure forgot one. So I apologize. Leave it in the comments and I'll give you a shout out. But there are so many chains building. And one of the cool things is those chains that I just mentioned are like so different. You have on the creator side, you have Frame and Rari. On the institutional investor side, you have Kinto, right? Kinto is building a KYC environment for institutions, like so different than ApeChain or Trezor or Zai, right? On the gaming side. And then you have ones like Phoenix. Phoenix is doing an incredibly cool experiment where they're baking in advanced cryptography, in their case, fully homomorphic encryption, into the chain itself to give a private environment built on an Arbitrum Orbit chain. And I can go on and on and on. There are so many different projects that are doing unique things. Some of them are innovating on the technical level. Some of them are innovating on the ecosystem level. Some of them are innovating at the economics of how they share profits back with users or developers of the chain. Some of them are just innovating in branding, right? It might be technically the same as Arbitrum One or Arbitrum Nova, but it's branded differently and it's appealing to a different class of users. Others are innovating in data availability. The Arbitrum Orbit stack is modular. So you can plug in Celestia, you can plug in EigenDA, you can plug in Espresso data availability. You can plug in AnyTrust, which is the data availability that Arbitrum Nova uses, or you can use Ethereum's data availability. So there are so many different options, so many different axes on which you can innovate. And that to me, in one word, is customizability, is what you can do in Arbitrum Orbit that, as far as I know, you literally can't do in any other competing technology that exists today. And there are other technologies. So let me sort of get into that a little bit more and qualify that of what you can do differently in Orbit. Number one is you have the ability to govern yourself. In some of our competitors' technology, they try to govern your chain and say, hey, like your chain can only launch code that's approved by our governance. And in Orbit, no, you're free to govern yourself. You're free to choose which is the governance token. You're also, by the way, free to choose which is the fee token of the chain. So you can say, hey, I want it to be ETH, like Arbitrum One or Arbitrum Nova, or you can say, hey, I want the fee token of my chain to be some other asset, and you're totally free to choose that and to basically innovate on the economics in that way, deciding what token is used to pay fees. You can innovate on baking in account abstraction. You can really innovate anywhere. But back to what I was saying, some of the benefits of Orbit is the customizability. And it turns out in some of our competitors, in their offerings, they limit you what you customize because A, you don't get to control your own governance, and B, their governance has to approve how you innovate and what you can do and any custom features that you use. And this is not like arbitrary. So let's get a little bit into the technical of why this is. So we have something in Arbitrum called chain clusters. A chain cluster is the ability to take a few chains and sort of package them together so they kind of feel much more like one chain and have good interoperability in between them. And technically, it's not that difficult to do this, but it comes with some positives, like really great interop experience. You can have now more transaction throughput in this chain, and even though it's multiple chains, kind of feels like one. But there is a downside. The downside is you get worst of all security. So, for example, if you have two chains that have fast interoperability, and that interoperability is faster than the settlement time of Ethereum, and you can go back and forth. Imagine like there's a hack on one of these chains, and then users can just quickly send the bad funds to my chain, and then cash out. And now, like, I'm left holding the bag, right? So this is like a very contrived example, but there's a very simple example. There are many more examples as well, but just trying to motivate the idea that when you have chains that are linked like this and they don't wait for the security settlement to happen, they're sort of trusting each other. And in our view, in the Arbitrum Orbit world, there will be many chain clusters. So for example, I could be one project, and I'm like, I'm one project. I just have a lot of users. So rather than operating one Orbit chain, I'm going to operate 3 chains as a cluster as one, and give my users more capacity, great user experience. Wonderful, everyone's happy. Or you can have different projects coming together and saying, hey, we're 3 different projects, but we want to give a unified experience to our users. Why don't we join together in a chain cluster? And that could make a lot of sense too. But in that case, the chains need to trust one another. So like if I'm going ahead and doing some wacko weird innovation on my chain, you're going to want to take a look and say, do I trust this? Is this safe? Are we sure it's secure? Because my users might be exposed to any failures that you have. Also, if my chain, I believe in putting all the data on Ethereum, but you want to use an alternative data availability layer, I have to understand that because our chains are connected in a cluster, if there's any weakness in your data availability, that could pollute my chain as well. So you really have to trust the technological setup of other chains when you're joining a cluster, which is why in Arbitrum world, we believe that clusters should be opt-in. There will be many of them. You may have heard the term superchain. This is a very similar concept to the chain cluster built by Optimism, but in their case, they have this one superchain. And because they're encouraging everyone to sort of join their superchain, they need to basically have governance control over it. They can't just let you innovate and customize as you want. You need to basically do things that are approved, and for good reason, because if it's the worst of all security and you do something unapproved in your chain, you could end up polluting this entire super chain. So if you're in a model of like one for all, this is like center of the universe super chain, then you have to basically limit how people can customize. So that's why in the Arbitrum ecosystem, we as a community have not gone that direction. We are prioritizing chain clusters that you can spin up ad hoc and join at will. And the benefit that you get here is customizability. So you can customize your chain at will. You don't need my approval. You don't need the Arbitrum DAO's approval to tell you how to customize the code base. And you can go ahead and actually just launch an Arbitrum chain out of the box as you want. It comes in with some customizations, like there's a launcher tool where you can specify the token, the fee token, the governance token, etc. Or you can do something like Phoenix is doing, which is going deep into the code, into the guts, and making these like huge customizations. And no one's going to tell you you can't do that. And if you want to join a chain cluster, then you figure out who you want to join with and make sure that the right trust relationships are there. And I think over time, these different chain clusters will build, but it won't be one to rule them all. That's too limiting. It doesn't allow people to customize. And I think customizability is one of the key features of Arbitrum Orbit. Another key feature of Arbitrum Orbit that differentiates it is its super fast block times. So block times in the Arbitrum public chains are about 250 milliseconds, the fastest in the space, and you can actually lower it to 100 milliseconds. And this is not just parameter fine tuning. As you get faster and faster, the technology needs to work and needs to perform, and that becomes harder and harder. So the fact that it works at these really fast speeds is a testament to the strength of the Arbitrum technology, the resilience, and the stability overall of the technology. So the idea is that Orbit gives you the ability to customize on so many different axes. Now, there's one other thing I want to talk about today, which is a bit of a misconception, which is some people think Arbitrum Orbit is for layer 3s. And if you want to launch a layer 2, Arbitrum Orbit doesn't work for you. Now, there is a basis for that misconception, but as we stand today, it is a misconception. So the basis for that misconception is when the Arbitrum Orbit program launched, the way it launched was, hey, if you want to launch a layer 3 on top of Arbitrum 1 or Arbitrum Nova, so you build an Arbitrum Orbit chain on top of one of the Arbitrum public chains, you can do that. It's permissionless, it's free, and that's still true today. And the second thing is, if you want to do something else, like say you wanted to launch a chain on Ethereum, you can go ahead and ask the Arbitrum DAO for a license. Off-chain Labs could issue a license, but we push people to ask the DAO for a license. And you can ask the DAO for a license to say, hey, can I get a license to launch a chain? And the idea here is really to create synergies in the ecosystem and to create to make sure that the projects are contributing back and part of the community. So if you're a layer 3, then it's fine. Everything sort of just works, and there's natural synergies because you are basically settling onto Arbitrum. You're paying fees on Arbitrum 1. There's natural synergies there. That natural alignment doesn't necessarily happen for layer 2s, because if you build a layer 2 on Ethereum, there's no natural alignment with Arbitrum and the DAO. And we thought, and the community thought, it's important for there to be that alignment, which is why initially it said, okay, so if you want to build a layer 2, go to the DAO and ask them for their permission and create that alignment, and you'll get permission to build a layer 2. It turned out, though, for a lot of people, that was a bit of a cumbersome process, right? So having to go to the DAO, some people just didn't want to talk about things publicly. Like imagine I'm building a chain privately, and now I have to go to the Arbitrum DAO and say, hey, Arbitrum DAO, in public, I want to build this chain. Can I have your approval? For some people, that was a good idea, maybe, but I think for many people, that was a deterrent, and it led them to other technology stacks. And then there was this big conversation led up by folks in the foundation and the DAO and delegates of, we need to do something to make a self-serve option here. And that's what the Arbitrum expansion pack was. It's a self-serve option. So now you don't need to talk to the DAO. You can go ahead and you can launch a layer 2 on Ethereum as part of what's called the Arbitrum expansion pack. You can actually, and this is super cool, even launch a layer 2 on a layer 3 on other Ethereum L2. So if you want to say, for example, launch an Arbitrum layer 3 on top of the base blockchain, you can do that. The only caveat is we want it to be Ethereum aligned. So you have to be in the Ethereum ecosystem, but you can launch layer 3s on any Ethereum layer 2, as well as on Ethereum itself. As part of the self-service model, so how do we get that alignment? As part of the self-service model is if you're launching as an L3 on another chain or as an L2, other than the Arbitrum public chains, you have to contribute back to the Arbitrum DAO and to the Arbitrum Developer Guild. This is a new guild we set up for encouraging people to contribute to the ecosystem's core development. And it's a total of 10% of the net profit of the chain, right? So if you subtract the chain's L1 cost and take the L2 cost and the difference, and then you take 10% of that, it's with 8% goes to the Arbitrum DAO and 2% goes to this newly formed developer guild. And that's it. You can do it. And if you, by the way, say, hey, I don't want to pay that fee, you could still go to the DAO and say, hey, the Arbitrum expansion pack terms doesn't work for me. I want a different deal. I want a custom deal. I want to pay less. I want to contribute something other than this. That's fine. You can still go to the DAO. You don't have to use a self-serve option. You can still get a customized option, but the self-serve option exists for those that don't want to do the customized option. So the TLDR is Arbitrum can be launched as a layer 2 on Ethereum, as well as a layer 3 on Arbitrum 1, as well as a layer 3 on other Ethereum L2s. So One more time, because there is this misconception that Arbitrum Orbit is only for layer threes. That once was true. It's not true anymore. You can launch your Arbitrum Orbit L2s, and we're actually seeing a bunch of chains doing that. Some of the ones I mentioned, Frame and Kinto, for example, these are layer two chains. And there are, by the way, benefits of launching layer three. I'm a fan of layer three chains. There are two core benefits that I see. Number one is it lowers the cost of onboarding. So imagine that you're a user that has your funds in Coinbase and you launch this brand new shiny layer two and you want to get your funds there. So on day one for your new layer two, exchanges are probably not going to support it directly. Most Arbitrum Orbit chains today are too new to have direct exchange support. Some of them do. For example, Zai has a direct Binance integration, which is incredible. But most chains will take some time to get that. So, and in those critical times, how do you onboard users? So if I'm a Coinbase user, I want to bridge to your chain, I'll have to do two things. I'll have to, number one, go to Ethereum. From Coinbase to Ethereum, that's one Ethereum transaction. Number two, from Ethereum, go over the bridge to your chain. That's two Ethereum transactions. If you're a layer three, though, and say Arbitrum One, it will be a very similar flow, but I'll replace Ethereum with Arbitrum One. So I'll have to go from Coinbase to Arbitrum One, because Coinbase and all other exchanges, for the just about every other exchange supports direct Arbitrum One integration. That's one Arbitrum transaction. Then once I'm on Arbitrum One, I'll go over the bridge to your chain. That's two Arbitrum transactions. And the difference is, instead of having two Ethereum transactions, I have two Arbitrum transactions, and your cost of onboarding will just shoot down because Arbitrum transactions are so much cheaper than Ethereum transactions. So user acquisition costs will go down. And the second thing that L3s do really nicely is there are times where your chain will have sporadic usage. So maybe you're doing an NFT drop on your chain and it's going to be very, very in demand. And then the next day it's going to have less demand. Or maybe this hour, there are a lot of people using it, but sometimes in the middle of the night in some time zone, there are fewer people using the chain. When you post to your data to Ethereum or to the layer beneath you, there's a fixed cost of that. And when you have a lot of transactions, the cost is amortized, it goes away, it's not very important. But when the transaction volume is low, the cost could be expensive. So if you have one transaction at every hour, it's going to get expensive to post these to Ethereum, because that one transaction has to basically pay the fees of posting to Ethereum. If you're a layer two, you got to go to Ethereum yourself. The analogy I like to use is going via over a toll. You're in a car, you got to pay the toll yourself. But if you're a layer three, you don't have to go yourself. Your data will still get posted in Ethereum, but it'll be part of the bus, right? And on the bus with you will be all those Arbitrum One transactions, all those other transactions like other L3s. Those will all be packaged together and get a seat on the bus. And you don't have to worry about having enough to amortize yourself. You'll be part of this larger bus. And as long as in the aggregate there are a lot of transactions, which there are in the ecosystem, because Arbitrum One itself does a lot of transactions, you will have a ton of cheaper fees, and you'll have much more stable fees. So that's why I think for a lot of projects, L3 is a really, really good option. But that being said, if you're an Orbit developer, you want to launch an L2, there is absolutely an option for you today, a self-service option for you. You don't need anyone's permission. You can go ahead and launch Arbitrum Orbit as an L2, and you can customize it however you want. You can use the pre-filled customization options like change your governance token, change the fee token, choose the validators, et cetera, and you can go deep into the code and start changing whatever you want, assuming you know what you're doing. But no one here is going to stop you. It's completely permissionless to do, as long as you take part of the Arbitrum expansion pack. One thing, one term that's been helpful for me to think about this, there's a lot of talk about licensing and open source versus closed source. I think a new term that Web3 enables is community source. Let me say what I mean here. If you have, in traditional Web2, there was no way for a community to really rally around the project in a way that they have a stake and they're invested in it. They feel that they are, really a part of the community. Whereas in crypto, you have these communities that form. Arbitrum has a strong community, and the idea is in Web2 world, there was always like open source or closed source. Either you let everyone use it for free, and they don't contribute back to the community necessarily. They can, but this is actually often a problem with Web3 software, where people build it themselves and they don't contribute back to the central code base, and they don't contribute resources. And this is a big problem with open source development. Or you have closed source development, where a company doesn't share the rights to use the code that they're using. They might actually not share the code at all. They might put the code out with a restrictive license or no license. And this is sort of the Web2 model. But I think Web3 enables community source licensing, which is incredibly important. What community source licensing is I think that this Arbitrum is a great example of pioneering that, which is the code is out there. You can use it, but if you're using it in ways that might be at odds with the community, like building a layer two that might be competitive to Arbitrum One or Arbitrum Nova, then you're asked explicitly to contribute back. So part of the license is it's not restricting you from using it. It's saying though, build in that alignment. It's community source. Make sure that it belongs to the community, and make sure you're a part of the community and building that alignment with the community. So I personally love this model. It doesn't restrict anyone. It doesn't hold anyone back. Anyone can use it, but everyone makes sure that they're aligned with the community. And that alignment can come in different ways. If you're building on L3 and Arbitrum 1 and Nova, you're not asked to contribute anything back because you're naturally aligned with the community. If you're building something that's not directly connected in a technical way to the Arbitrum blockchains, you're saying, okay, here, just as part of the expansion pack, can you contribute back to the Arbitrum community? Can you contribute back to the developer guild, to those that are building this core technology? And hey, you could even join the developer guild. That would be great if you wanted to build it yourself, but it's community source, community driven. And I think it's a new model in open source, it's a new model that's sort of not captured by the traditional binary of open source, closed source, community source licensing. It's open, you can use it, you can read it, you can use it, but you have to contribute back as part of that usage. I think it's a fantastic middle ground, but would love to hear if anyone else agrees or disagrees. That's most of my thoughts on Arbitrum Orbit today. I had a few other just brief things before I sign out here that I wanted to cover. So, and if you have other things that you want me to talk about, feel free to put it in the comments. One shout out here I want to give to Nuhere. Nuhere is a really interesting crypto film that is being supported by the Arbitrum Foundation to support and to celebrate crypto art. And they just dropped these really cool dynamic NFTs on Zora today. So if you haven't taken a look at the project, it's called Nuhere, and I encourage you to look at it. It's on Zora today. Super cool announcement. And let me actually just put that tweet right here so everyone can see it. Hold on a second. Yeah, let's put this right here on screen so you can see what I'm talking about. Sorry, give me 1 sec. We'll get there. Talk amongst yourselves. Just kidding. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. This is Nuhere. I think this is me actually, this pirate one. So that's cool. But yeah, exciting project. Take a look at it. And again, you can mint the NFTs on Zora today. And let's go Arbitrum. Thank you. Yeah, super excited to be here and to be talking. That's one thing I wanted to shout out. Generally, Arbitrum Orbit projects, so many coming live. And the cool thing is, by the way, in January, I don't think there were any. I think the first Arbitrum Orbit chains went live in January, and it's sort of been explosive growth from there. And one thing we haven't talked about today is the interoperability of Orbit chains. The idea is they're not going to just be, they're in orbit, right? When you're in orbit, you sort of orbit together and are sort of all circling around and controlled by the same pulse. And the idea is there will be really good interop with Arbitrum Orbit technology, and we're building that out. We talked about some of it today in chain clusters, so building out chain clusters for chains to connect themselves. We're also working closely with Espresso, and they're building shared sequencing services, which are other ways in which chains can connect themselves by leveraging shared infrastructure that can build really good bridging experiences between chains. It's early days in Arbitrum Orbit, but it's really exciting early days. And also when features like Arbitrum Stylus come live, and Arbitrum Stylus is the really cool, and I talk about it every time, sorry, the really upcoming new feature that will enable you to write in other languages on Arbitrum chains. Those will all be compatible with Orbit. So you'll be able to decide yourself, hey, do I want to launch Arbitrum Stylus support on my chain? And you'll get all the upstream benefits of Stylus and other new developments in the ecosystem that you can choose. You can choose not to, or you could choose to deploy on your chain, and you have that freedom. So in one word, or if there are two main takeaways from today, Sorry, three. There are three main takeaways from today. I'd say one, the Arbitrum Orbit community is exploding. 50 plus chains that I'm aware of in the ecosystem, which is potentially the largest certainly the largest L3 ecosystem around around in the Ethereum space. Number two is so it's an incredibly strong ecosystem. Number two is L2s and L3s, not just L3s. L2s are also supported. And, I might have some reasons why I prefer L3s for lots of projects, but ultimately the cool thing about Orbit is it's not my decision, it's your decision. And that leads me to number three is full customizability. You take the code base and you do with it what you want to implement your vision. And maybe you want to change something on the branding front. Maybe you want to change something on the sort of economics front. Maybe you want to change something on the data availability front, or maybe you want to change really, really deep technical features that require you to roll up your sleeves and go deep in the code. All of that becomes extremely possible and easy to do with Arbitrum Orbit. So I'd encourage you all to take a look at all the wonderful, fantastic chains building an Arbitrum Orbit. Let me know in the comments if I missed ones that I should talk about next time. I'm super excited for all the innovation going on in Orbit, and thank you all for tuning in. And feel free to leave comments on the Twitter thread if there are things you want me to talk about next time. Hoping to continue to do this through regular cadence. Thank you, everyone, and have a fantastic day.